Welcome to the Sharia TechCast. We'll bring you all things science, engineering, technology, and innovation. Today we're joined by Leanne Linsky, a stand-up comedian turned tech entrepreneur and founder of Plauzzable, a live online comedy platform that's redefining digital entertainment through innovative technology. With a master's in innovation and entrepreneurship from UC Irvine and years of experience performing and producing comedy in New York and Los Angeles, Leanne brings a unique perspective on building tech solutions for creative industries. Her journey from comedy stage to developing a visual performance platform demonstrates how technical innovation can solve real-world problems for artists and audiences alike. Today, we'll explore how she transitioned from a performer to tech founder, the challenges behind building a live comedy platform, and what happens when creative problem solving meets technical execution. So, Leanne, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited to be here. Thanks for the
Uh,
nice intro.
All right. So let's start with the tech itself. So can you give us an overview of what Plausible is and the core of its technology?
So, what it is if you think of an online marketplace, if you're familiar with Etsy, do you know the Etsy website where people make things and then think people buy things? So, Plausible is a marketplace in where comedians can produce their comedy shows and live events on Plausible, and then comedy fans log in and can see it. But the thing that separates Plausible from other places where maybe you consume comedy like YouTube or other social media platforms is that Plausible happens in real time. So it's all live. And the difference is that everybody can see and hear each other. Whereas sometimes on other platforms, you have to stop, read a chat, or type in something to a chat or use an emoji. Plausible is where everybody logs in, everybody can see and hear each other in real time and is in the same virtual room as the performer. And the performer can hear everybody laugh and clap in real time. They don't have to stop and read a chat or wait for a like hours later after posting. It all happens live. So Plausible is a platform in which comedians can get all the scheduling tools. They can schedule, they can use our ticketing services, they can use our virtual stages to produce and perform their comedy. And they don't have to cobble together a bunch of different apps or websites or things like that. Plausible has everything all in one place. Fans can log into Plausible, create a free account, and have access to the directory of comedians. They have access to all the shows and event listings, and they can register for any event they like once they're logged in.
Wonderful, wonderful. So tell us, Leanne, what made you decide to transition from performing comedy to building a tech platform for comedians?
So, I'd been doing comedy since 2001, and everything I did, at that point was in person. Obviously, it was way back before Zoom, before a lot of things were happening on the internet like they are today. And then eventually I moved to New York City. And when I left New York City and moved to the West Coast, to the LA area, I suddenly found myself spending way more time on the freeway than I did on the stage, because in New York, I could take the train or I could walk places. I could get around much easier and get more stage time. In LA, even though things are even kind of close together, it's very hard to get around in a car because there's so much traffic. And I'd spend a couple hours driving just for 5 minutes of stage time. And so I was like, this is It's great that I'm in LA, but what's really challenging is, spending all my time in traffic and all my money on gas. So how and also the community is different. Everything's spread out over a much larger area, and I really missed the community I had grown while I was in New York. So back in August of 2019. So when I moved to LA, it was the end of 2014, 2015. And I was like, maybe I'll do things online. And that's when people were using Skype a lot. Zoom was around. I was using that for my day job. And I was like, maybe I'll do that. So I had this idea, and then life was lifey. I was producing other in-person shows and whatnot. And then in August of 2019, BC, before COVID, I decided, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to do some things online. And people were like, what? Online? Why would you do that? And then people liked it and they started paying me for it to show up to my open mic online that I was doing using existing technologies. And then COVID happened. And now suddenly everybody's doing that, but then I realized it created this other problem. Yeah, we could use those existing technologies and cobble it together, but it's very fragmented, right? Like I would have to know of a specific comedian, then go to that comedian's website, find out what that comedian is doing and where, and then get the link and then do all that stuff. But if I'm just a general comedy fan, what if I want to explore who else is out there and how do I find them without going down this giant rabbit hole of all sorts of entertainers and creators? I'm just want to focus on comedy. How do I do that? And that's where I started getting the ideas for Plauzzable. I could solve those kind of problems, but also the issue of how do comedians get paid? Um, contrary to popular belief, comedians don't always get paid, and when they do, they don't always get paid with money. Sometimes it's like, um, "I'll pay you with a burger and a beverage," or, "I'll give you a couple dollars for gas money," or "Just consider it good exposure," or whatever it is, right? And so I wanted to solve the larger problem of how can comedians monetize their actual performance. Social media platforms, sure, there's monetization options, but you have to jump through a lot of hoops and meet minimum requirements and then have X number of followers and this number of views and that before you even get a percentage of ad revenue. Plauzzable, we don't have any ads, and you only need to sell a minimum of one ticket and you're making money. So we really leveled the playing field to solve that problem so comedians could actually get paid for performing rather than random content creation. So that was a long answer to where
Amazing. That was a really great response to give there. So tell us, did your background in stand-up comedy prepare you for the challenges of being a tech founder? If it did, then tell us how.
Yeah, well, part of being a comedian is, you know, what we call on stage bombing on stage or getting a lot of no's or, things not working out and having to rewrite jokes. That's all part of the process, and it's very similar to entrepreneurship because we have to try something, go back, rework it, put it out there again, tweak it, so we get a good product market fit, just like we would with a joke. So, it's a lot of resilience, a lot of, grit and the ambition, like, I'm gonna figure this out, I'm gonna solve this problem. It's kind of like the the fun of writing a good joke, like, I know there's something here, how do I polish it and make it funny? Same thing goes for a problem. How do I work through this and polish it up and make it a solution that everybody can use? Similar thing, a lot of the same characteristics that a performer has is a lot of resilience, a thick skin, and the courage, I guess, if you will, to keep going even though you get a lot of no's until you figure out the yes.
Wonderful. So, what was the biggest surprise about the stage, going from the stage to the startup world for you?
The biggest surprise, I think always for me, because I'm an impatient person, is time, the amount of time it takes. Um, there's always a sense of urgency, but and we have to move fast, but even though I feel like I'm moving fast, and the same went for even when I was, focused on my performing as a comedian, there's a lot of time involved behind the scenes in order to get to that success, you know? There's a lot of things, that go on in the background that a lot of people don't see on a regular basis, and there's a lot more to it. So it's not like, "Oh, I have this great idea," and then everybody immediately loves it. It's kind of like, "I have this joke," and everybody immediately loves it. No, there's a lot of work that goes into telling that joke, even though some people are naturally funny. It's really hard to just get up on stage and be funny. There's a lot of work that goes into that and developing that set and writing it and tweaking it and working it out and shopping it and all that stuff. And then same thing with a business. It's, have an idea. You don't just go it doesn't always work out that you just go sell it and scale it overnight. There's a lot that goes in behind the scenes in order to make that happen. So I don't know if it was a big surprise. I think to me, it's one of the bigger challenges in general is just the my challenge is impatience in having to learn patience in the process of getting there. And to your point of surprise, okay, the thing that just came to mind is hiring developers. I thought it would be easy because so many people are what they would consider a developer, but not all developers are the same. Some people focus on this type of code, some people focus on this type of code, some people build these things, and others focus on these things. One person doesn't necessarily do all things, and also finding the right person who could understand my vision and my dream of what I was trying to build and then build it. Because I'm a non-technical founder, so finding that right developer, I didn't think it would be as hard as that would be.
Great. So you talk about finding the right developer being quite challenging. So how exactly did you then went further to overcome that challenge and start hiring the right people for the right job?
So it took me a long time to find the right people. I mean, I originally found my first person that I had met through school, and he was great. But then there was a challenge. It's not always as easy to hire someone as you think because when you're starting out, you have to do your entity formation, go through all these other processes, get all the paperwork, do those things. IP agreements, again, a lot of things that come up. It's not just hire and go. I mean, I suppose some people could do that, but if I'm going about things the way I want to go about it for the long term, other steps need to be taken. Hiring additional team members took quite a while, again, because I needed people who could build specific parts of the platform, and it's a very tech heavy platform. So, in meeting and interviewing people, a lot of people were like, "Well, why don't you just do this?" And I'm like, "Well, that already exists, and that doesn't solve the problem." So, I'm trying to create something that actually solves this specific problem. And so, yeah, that just took a long time, and that was probably most surprising. But I think again, that's where the practice of patience comes in. Of like, I'm not gonna hire just anybody because I can't end up with just anything and take that risk and that investment. I have to really spend that extra time finding the right person and getting the right product, and that took me 6 months.
Interesting. So how exactly did earning your master's in innovation while launching Plausible change your approach to building the platform?
So, I think for me, the earning my, degree during that time, it wasn't as much as about the degree as it was about, well, it was a I mean, it all kind of comes together. But the reason for me going back to school for that is I wanted to immerse myself into the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and it was kind of vital for me. So I had spent my undergrad was in business, and then I worked in business. I worked for a Fortune 500 for like nearly 13 years. And then during that time, I started studying comedy. And then I ended up being laid off. and then I took that opportunity to go full on into comedy. So I started in business. I went full on into comedy and just immersed myself into that industry. And then now I'm circling back around to come back into business. But a lot of things have changed, and especially with technology. And I was thinking, okay, I want to create this tech platform. How am I going to do this as a non technical person who's been away from the business side of things for a long time and focused on entertainment? And I thought the quickest and best way for me to jump in and really make contacts and a new network of people is to go back to school. And with a graduate program, one of the most valuable things we can gain is that network. And that's what I was seeking. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. So when I saw that University of California was offering this new graduate program for innovation and entrepreneurship, I was like, that is exactly what I'm looking for, because those are the people I need to know in order to find the right people to bring onto my team or my board, my advisors, those kind of things, so that I wouldn't have. I don't want to be all by myself. I know it needs more than just me to do the things I don't know how to do, and that's the key part of going back to school while I was developing this. I was also introduced to people with incubator programs, founder programs, accelerators, um, all of those things that open the doors to propel my idea forward. And that was key in the development of the business, actually.
Wonderful. So, what are the ways that your comedy skills help you to communicate better with your tech team or investors?
How comedy training? Let's see. How comedy training? I think the the most obvious thing is bringing some element of fun into it, right? Because in comedy, it's not like creating a healthcare business where necessarily lives are at stake or something like that. So there's an element of levity that we can take when building this and planning. It's a fun project, also solving real problems for real people. But I think the other thing with comedy training is also, especially with improv comedy, is learning to be collaborative in a process and working with others, listening to others' ideas, being willing to let go of some of my ideas and take on someone else's and build upon that. Um, yeah, I think really teamwork and a collaborative atmosphere really helps.
Amazing. So, tell us, what has been the most interesting technical challenge that you faced so far in building a live comedy platform?
Well, technical challenges, I think, kind of come up with non-technical users, right? Um, it's one thing to be with a demographic that, if you're building something for a specific demographic that is on the computer all the time. Comedians typically aren't on the computer all the time, or at least in the past. I think the pandemic changed a lot of that, and more people are more proficient than they would have been otherwise. But I deal with all ages. Um, I deal with all types of different people with the same goal of creating comedy or performing live. And typically in the past, a comedian, the most tech we'd have to worry about is the mic working in person on a stage. And if it's not, one easy solution is to just use your voice and project. That doesn't necessarily work online if your mic isn't working. You can scream all you want, but the people in other locations are not going to hear you. So I think there's been a learning curve for people in general, taking things that they would typically do in person and bring them online. So I think as a founder of a tech company, building something for people that that they're used to doing things in person, my biggest challenge is making things really simple and reducing user friction, uh, down to its simplest form. Currently, we're going through a bit of a redesign even now because we want to add new features. And in order to build those features, we're taking this as an opportunity to even simplify the process that we've already had. And we launched 2 years ago, but constantly evolving of looking at like, how can we make this even simpler for people to use so that the steps to get there, the most non-technical person can get in, log in, create a show, or log in and enjoy a show. That's our goal. And I think that's always going to be my biggest challenge. It just is. And I think I'm always going to have people who aren't always on a computer that I'm always going to be continuing to try to serve. If that does that make sense?
Sure, it sure does. Uh, so tell us, how has technology changed what is possible for comedians and entertainers?
Wow. Well, I think technology has changed a lot of things, especially with the popularity of social media. That it's it used to be uh, people could be really talented comedian and get booked on shows and at clubs. Now, the clubs also look at how many followers do you have? How many likes do you get? Those kind of things. They really take into consideration other elements besides the comedian's talent. It's also like, how good are you at promoting yourself online? Um, there's pros and cons that go with that, right? So that's a huge new challenge that technology has presented for comedians. Also, I think it also brings technology has kind of democratized this industry in such a way that now anybody can enter it, and not everybody should necessarily, but they can. And that kind of changes, though, what people's how people consume it, what people's perception is of it, and what they're willing to accept has changed also. So there's a lot of people on social media that are considered comedians, but they're not what we would traditionally think of as a comedian. So I think the definition has expanded and evolved a bit. It makes it more challenging for people who are actually sitting down, writing the jokes, going to open mics and performing in person. There's a lot of people out there who maybe have never done that, and yet they're now considered a comedian because they're very popular on TikTok. But what they're doing isn't in a traditional style of stand up or performance. So I think although that's great and it's opened it up and it's democratized it, it also presents challenges as to who's getting booked, and there's a lot more competition in a space that, you don't always know now what you're competing with. So, yeah, it's changed a lot. I think it's continued to evolve. There's a lot of people going back and forth of like crowd work. Is that really, legit stand up or is that hack? And people can debate that all along, but what's popular on social media is changing how people are thinking about what we traditionally know as stand up. So I think it's going through a big huge change for
Interesting,
better or for
interesting.
worse. Yeah. Also in how we consume news. That's all changed also.
Wonderful. So, yeah, still on technology. Yeah, you talked about how not everyone should go into comedy. So I'd like to know, how does artificial intelligence change or affect these particular statements? With AI, anybody can simply prompt ChatGPT to say, okay, write a comedy script for me, and just start reading it out. So doesn't that change the notion that not everyone can go into comedy?
Well, yeah, like I think should or shouldn't they? Like that's a debatable thing. I don't think everything's always black or white. I think it's complex. And the use of I think, is also complex. It's not yes or a no. I think there's pros and there's definitely cons. I think my opinion, I wouldn't want to be or see a comedian have a whole AI written set and then them go perform it and present it as though it's their own. To me,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that seems
It's a shared opinion.
dishonest. Yeah, right? Um, so there's that. Now, could AI help a comedian? Could it give feedback on a joke? Could it give uh, potential rewrites for a joke or suggestions? There's some gray area there. Like, is that acceptable or not acceptable? Right? Um, who gets credit for it? There's copyright things. AI is an interesting thing because I don't, it's the wild, wild west out there right now as it's still under development. But, and these models and how they work, are they pulling information? Is it plagiarizing anything? Um, I think a comic would need to do due diligence. Like, is this somebody else's joke? You don't ever want to steal someone else's material. Doing something in someone else's voice is really pushing limits that I don't think should be pushed. So I think, it's like if we use technology in math, right? Using a calculator versus knowing how to do the math yourself, right? Using a calculator is often quicker and it can be very accurate, but should you still know how to do that, it's not the same perfect analogy for writing a joke, but it shows like there are some benefits to using a calculator. There it can be helpful in situations. Should you, if you were in school and you were doing a math test in elementary and you're learning math, should you be using a calculator to get your answers? No, you should be doing the math, right? So I just think there's pros and cons. There's things that there's a lot of ethical questions to be asked, especially when claiming something is yours. So yeah, there's not a short answer. I could go on forever with examples, but
Amazing, amazing. I think you've very well answered the question. So tell us, what's your vision for the future of live comedy shows in our increasingly digital world?
I think it's gonna continue it as technology is moving faster and faster every day. I mean, look how far AI has come in just over the past couple of years. Look at how social media has changed the way we communicate with other people. Uh, some ways good, some ways not so good. Like, I think that is gonna continue to change and evolve everything, within the industry. I think there's gonna be some things that maybe we really love. I think there's gonna be other things that we're gonna question or not like. I think in the ways of entertainment specifically, I don't think we can avoid it. And that's the thing that I see specifically with Plauzzable is like some people before the pandemic were like, why would I ever go online? Comedy should be experienced in person. And I agree, comedy should be experienced in person. But I think there is opportunity to be had that we can extend our reach online, meaning we can get comedians from places that maybe we wouldn't have found comedians before because they don't live next to a comedy club or they're not in a metro area where they have access to these things, but they're really funny and have the skills. With some with an online platform, now they have the opportunity to get fans and get a following and put themselves out there. And even outside the US, all around the world, people can sign up and now we can experience people from around the world. I think technology has a way of bridging gaps that are seen. So I don't see things as being all in person or just online. I think both can coexist with one another and there can be a nice blend. So comedians, although they can continue to do things in person because we can't replicate an in person, like there's a magic to an in-person event that is only can only be experienced in person. But I do think that there's opportunity to be had also online. And when people aren't doing their in-person performances, they can practice, they can extend their reach, and they can bridge that gap online. So I think both can go hand in hand. And I see it continuously moving that direction as we go forward.
Wonderful. Tell us, Leanne, how do you balance the creative side of comedy with the analytical side of running a tech business?
Well, sometimes I really have to have a sense of humor or I'll cry, I think. Also, one of the big things is, there's truth in comedy, and often people will define comedy as tragedy plus time equals comedy. And in entrepreneurship, there's a lot of tragedy, there's a lot of time, so therefore there's a lot of comedy. But I think having a sense of humor gives me perspective. Um, Looking at it from other points of view, um, working with comedians who also have a sense of humor. And I think, you know, I'm not building a healthcare app or something where I'm in a life or death situation and I have the luxury of really kind of having more of a sense of humor in what I'm dealing with. But I'm very serious about about comedy, and I think that it's always going to play a big role in my life in all areas.
Amazing. So, what advice would you have for someone who is looking to go into entrepreneurship or becoming a tech founder or someone who just started a tech startup? So, what advice would you have to give to someone like that?
I would say go for it. Take one action today that would take you a step closer to that big dream, whether it's doing your first open mic or, um, testing out an idea. Uh, Put together what we would call your minimum viable product. Put together one or two jokes and try it out on somebody. That's taking a step. Even today, writing a joke, all it takes for me to start working on that joke is writing it down, maybe sharing it with somebody else and seeing if it gets the response I'm looking for. Going back into working it again. Entrepreneurship, the same. Take one action, put it out there, get some feedback, go back, rework it, make it better, put it out there again, see what happens. It's a process. I think that's a big thing with whatever dream you're going out there to do, whether it's entrepreneurship or being a comedian. Um, Enjoy the journey because it's not necessarily a destination. It is an ongoing journey for whatever it is you're going to be working on.
Amazing. So, tell us, what does innovation mean to you, and how does it relate to your world of entertainment technology? I like to hear the meaning of the word innovation from your own opinion.
Innovation.
Yeah,
I think we're just constantly innovating, right? Like, I think innovation, uh, if I constantly have to be innovating and creating and improving upon something, coming up with something new and something better. Um, because if I don't, someone else will. That's part of, competition in anything. Um, is that creation of something. I think things are moving so rapidly. If we just sit here and we're like, I'm just going to do everything, with a pencil and a pad of paper, clearly people have passed me up because there's millions better pencils. There's a lot of different types of paper, and now people can type it. They can transcribe from what they're saying. There's so many ways to get things out there. So there's always faster, better, cheaper. And I think anytime we're building something, we have to think, how can we do it faster, better, or cheaper than the other people around me to stay ahead of the competition? And yeah, that kind of goes with anything. Otherwise, we get complacent and we get stuck and people start passing us up. So I think that's the exciting part of entrepreneurship is how can we get there and how can we do those things? How can we set ourselves apart and be different or better than others in our field?
wonderful, wonderful. So finally, Miss Leanne, where can our listeners reach you or find you or go check out Plausible and support some independent comedians there?
Yeah. So Plauzzable. plauzzable.com, Plauzzable.com. That's the easiest way. And then you can create a free account on Plauzzable and check out all of the events and comedians on our site. If you want to contact me, Leanne Linsky on LinkedIn. I should be the only Leanne Linsky out there. And yeah, look for me and connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to hear from you.
Wonderful, Lynn. It's been a really awesome conversation with you, and I'm really excited to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure talking about all things comedy and all things plausible. Thank you so much.